সুপ্রিয় দর্শক, আরটিভির বিশেষ আলোচনা অনুষ্ঠান বাসযোগ্য নগরী অনুষ্ঠানে আপনাদের স্বাগত জানাচ্ছি। আমি বুয়েটের পুরকৌশল বিভাগের অধ্যাপক ডক্টর রাকিব হাসান। আজ আমাদের আলোচনার বিষয় What's needed to make the city of Dhaka a role model of urban resiliency? আর এই বিষয়ে আলোচনায় আমাদের সঙ্গে আছেন এই স্টুডিওতে জাপানের টোকিও বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়ের অধ্যাপক প্রফেসর ডক্টর কিমিরো মেগুরো এবং আরও আছেন আমাদের রাজুকের একটি প্রজেক্ট চলছে আরবান রেজিলিয়েন্স প্রজেক্ট, সেই প্রজেক্টের কো-টিম লিডার হিসেবে এখানে আছেন ডক্টর মিশেল পিঙ্কাউস্কি। আমাদের আলোচনায় আমরা এখন যাচ্ছি। তো শুরুতেই আমি ডক্টর মিশেল পিঙ্কাউস্কিকে আলোচনাটা শুরু করার জন্য অনুরোধ করব। Dr. Michelle, would you please explain first how you're involved in the urban resiliency project of Dhaka? Rajuk.
Yes,
please.
thank you, Dr. Rakib. I'm happy to. We're very honored to be here in Dhaka, and Dr. Meguro and I are working on a project called the Urban Resilience Project Rajuk Park, and that is a project between the government of Bangladesh and the World Bank. The goal of the project is to improve resilience across Dhaka, and different parts of the government are doing different portions of that project, and we are specifically working with Rajuk. So we're here with the Research Triangle Institute, as you mentioned in the introduction, and that is a private research scientific institute in the United States. And we've had great cooperation. It's been a pleasure to work with you and your colleagues at BUIT and our counterparts in the government of Bangladesh, and especially at Rajuk. So it's really a very important project for the citizens of Dhaka because, as we'll talk about today, there are some issues in Dhaka that make the buildings not as safe as they should be. And so the World Bank project is designed to do things like enforce the Bangladesh National Building Code and to establish a new unit within Rajuk called the Urban Resiliency Unit. And what that unit is really going to be a center of excellence to bring together architects and engineers and planners and others to focus on urban resiliency, to really focus on making the city safer. And one other important piece that people will be interested in is that we are currently developing an upgraded version of the electronic construction permitting system. So anybody that's going to build a building, that will affect them and really help to streamline that process and make it easier and make sure the buildings are built safer, basically.
Before we discuss more, first our viewers would like to know what is urban resiliency. So maybe Professor Meguro can discuss that.
Okay, thank you. Urban resilience is a combination capacity of disaster risk reduction and also disaster resilience. The disaster risk reduction means the damage mitigation capacity when the hazard attack. This is the first. And second, disaster resilience. This means the capacity of quick recovery and also the capacity to use the disaster as an important opportunity to solve the potential problems that your target, your affected area had before the hazard attack. Big disaster has a very unique characteristics that even without big disaster appear the potential problems that the affected area had with a shorter time and more visible. Therefore, disaster is very unfortunate event, but we should use unfortunate event as an important opportunity to solve the potential problems.
Should the people of Dhaka be aware for urban resilience? Do you have problem in Dhaka? What do you think?
You have a lot of problems.
Yes.
Because the city of Dhaka has a very high disaster potential. I mean, disaster high risk potential. Risk. And at the same time, the urban resilience of the city of Dhaka is quite low. These two combination is
Makes
You
Dhaka very
yeah.
unsafe.
Yes, disaster risk can be defined by the equation that hazard times exposed value times vulnerability. Hazard means the intensity and extent of the external force times probability. And exposed value times vulnerability means the number of vulnerable things or people that might be exposed to the hazard. The city of Dhaka, you have very high density of population and property, and also the vulnerability is quite high. Then exposed value is very high, and vulnerability is very high. So it means the city of Dhaka, its situation is very super high disaster risk condition.
Well, Dr. Rakib, let me ask you, maybe
Yeah.
you can tell people who are watching this program, what are some of the risks in Dhaka, to explain that a little bit more.
As a local resident of Dhaka, we are very much aware that Dhaka is a risky place. You know that there has been incidences like Eiffel Tower fire incident, and there have been incidences like a building collapse. Without any natural disaster, these incidences have happened. So we understand that Dhaka is a risky city, but there is a special risk of earthquake, and in addition to fires that usually occur here. Although the present generation of our country people, they don't know, but there is a risk, very high risk of earthquake in this country, especially Dhaka also. Because recently you haven't experienced that kind of earthquakes, but historically this part of the world was faced earthquakes, many earthquakes, and very big ones. Although they were not originated within the borders of this country, but in nearby countries like in India, Assam particularly, or Nepal, or Myanmar, or offshore. From offshore sources, there have been earthquakes that damaged structures in Bangladesh. But when those earthquakes happened, then at that time, there were very few high-rise structures in Bangladesh. So the damages were not that much. The casualties were not that high. But if that same earthquake happens now, the damages, the casualties will be unimaginable. So this is, again, I know that Professor Meguro is going to conduct a seminar on disaster imagination. So how important it is for the people now in Bangladesh to understand what can happen during this type of earthquake, how we can explain that to our viewers.
Yes, first, all level of the people, from the politician, government officials, mass media, engineers, and general public, they should understand the mechanisms of the disaster. That means a relation among input, system, output, this relation. Input is just hazard. System is your target areas, your living areas, regional characteristics composed of natural environment and also social environments. You should first understand the system and time-related factor. And based on the understanding of the mechanism of disaster, next what you should improve is disaster imagination capacity that you introduce. The disaster imagination capacity means when the hazard attack, since the occurrence of the hazard, as time goes, what really happened around you. This is the most important capacity to prepare the proper disaster countermeasures, because we, human beings, it is impossible for us to prepare well or to respond well for an unimaginable situation. Without improving this capacity, it's impossible.
How URU can play a role in this, that for people's awareness, for disaster, what will be the role of ERU that will be established, you are going to establish in Rajuk?
That's a very good question. Yes, and working with Rajuk, we're working to establish this urban resiliency unit. So one of their functions is going to be communication and outreach to help people really understand what it means to be prepared for a disaster and what that is really going to look like. We don't really understand, we think, oh, if there's an earthquake, maybe there'll be someone who will come and rescue me. But that might not be the case. So how can we prepare ourselves? And so this new URU will help people understand, what this really is, or develop their disaster imagination, and then develop strategies for being more prepared and more resilient for themselves.
People would like to know, for example, if some earthquake happens now, what they should do, or what should actually people do in preparation for that. Professor Meguro, if you can say something for our viewers.
So without understanding what really happened after the hazard attack, so we, as I said, we cannot propose proper countermeasures. I strongly recommend the people, please imagine when the hazard attack, what really happened around you as time goes. If some person, your family member, are killed due to the collapse of the structures, how do you live accepting that fact? It is very, very severe situation. But normally, we do not think about that kind of situation. And the people, when we ask, please imagine, many of them cannot imagine anything. So it means they cannot respond well, they cannot prepare well. So this is really, really the key.
And we all work with a lot of professionals, especially architects and engineers and developers who build buildings. And so that's another thing that the URU will be doing, is working with those professionals to help make sure that buildings are designed in a way that meets the building code. And the building code is there to make sure that the buildings are safer. You know this, you were very integral in developing that code, I believe, right? So to make sure that the buildings are designed properly, and then that the buildings are built properly, so they have the proper safety features. So, I mean, not just earthquakes, but fires. I think people now can really understand what it's like to have a fire in a high-rise, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yes.
So how can that building be made safer from the beginning, rather than figuring out, what can be done to help people who are in the middle of a fire? What can we do to make the building safer so that doesn't occur?
We'll discuss on this topic more. First, we'll take a short break and then we'll come back again. সুপ্রিয় দর্শক, নিচ্ছি ছোট্ট একটি বিরতি, ফিরছি অল্প সময়ের মধ্যেই, সঙ্গে দর্শক, বিরতির পর আপনাদের আবারও স্বাগত। সঙ্গে আমি আছি অধ্যাপক ডক্টর রাকিব হাসান। আলোচনা করছি বাসযোগ্য নগরী নিয়ে। Now I'll come back again to Professor Meguro. Yes. How important it is to implement building code for urban resiliency.
So we should establish the system by which the people should follow, or people willing to follow.
That's very important.
Otherwise, even when we establish a very nice code, sophisticated one, if people do not follow, then I can say you, this code is bad code.
Yeah.
That's a quite important point.
So, in addition to building code, what else can you do to make structures safer for future, like during the inspection, approval process and inspection of what Rajuk has been doing so far? What improvement can you do there?
Well, one thing is to realize that people who are building buildings and people who are supervising the construction of buildings, like Rajuk, they need to have a good relationship. It's important to have a good relationship because really both parties are there to help each other come up with a building there that is safer. So that's another thing that the URU hopes to do, is to continue to build that relationship and make sure that it's collaborative.
People of Rajuk, they have some responsibility in building up that relationship, right? On the other hand, from the professionals' side, they also have some responsibility in this regard. So how they can play a role in this, and what like other associations like our Institute of Engineers or Institute of Architects, what role they can play in making people abide by the building code.
As I said, to make a proper system, there are, I think, three major ways. First, to give a very, very heavy penalty if you do not follow. This is the penalty. This is the first. Second, if you can give the very attractive incentive that people want to follow. The third one is, if you disclose the disaster risk information to the people and let them understand the current risks. And also, at the same time, you should provide them their available, applicable solution measures to achieve the goal. These three or these combination are important to make the system.
Dr. Mushal, you yourself is a lawyer, so and you have already researched on our policies. Do you think is there any weakness in our policy, or should we improve them, or should we make them more people friendly, or how can we impose penalty or things like that? What's your take on that?
Well, laws definitely need to change as systems are changing. So I think it's a good time. The BNBC, the Bangladesh National Building Code, as I understand it, is about to be adopted, a new version, and that should trigger a review of the laws and regulations that go with it so that everything is harmonized. It's very important that everybody understand what the rules are so there's not ambiguity and confusion. So that will be important to review those rules. So there might be a lot of people watching this program that don't realize that before they live or work in a building, that building is supposed to have something called an occupancy certificate. And that means that the building has been certified to have been built, designed and built in accordance with the Bangladesh National Building Code. And that is the final approval to use the building. But what we have learned is not very many buildings in Dhaka have that occupancy certificate. Right. And there's different reasons for that and different opinions about why that is. But if people are more aware that that is something that's important for their buildings, then hopefully they will start asking that of whoever is giving them that space to use.
There should be a demand from the people.
That's right.
So that will make the owners to have occupancy certificate.
That's right.
So that will keep the system running and make the building safer.
Exactly.
So that's one thing, and so this is the situation. Most of the buildings don't have occupancy certificate. So these existing buildings, they are a big question mark regarding the safety. So how can the situation be improved? Or do you need to know more about the present situation?
First, you should establish the methodology to evaluate the seismic capacity of existing structures. Without understanding, well, without knowing the real seismic capacity of the existing structures, you cannot do anything. The first, you should establish the seismic capacity evaluation system.
There have been some studies like a comprehensive disaster management program and some studies done by JICA. And in those studies, in most of the studies, it's apparent that the building stock are very vulnerable to earthquake. So how can we improve that situation?
So providing some time as a moratorium up to some particular time. If you do not retrofit your house or your buildings, you should not use this one for your business. But that kind of the regulations or laws, if you can establish, then you can solve the problem up to some degree.
Can we go for some strengthening or retrofitting schemes for
Yes.
some selected buildings?
No. What I'm saying is within 5 years,
Yes.
you can have the moratorium for 5 years.
And make the owner...
If you do not retrofit your house or your buildings, then you should not use this for your business.
Okay.
Then people should do. That is a penalty type of the one.
Okay.
Or
people...
when we disclose the seismic capacity, real seismic capacity index of each structure, and show the people. That sometimes the poor quality buildings owner will give you some against. In such case, you can show the good ones only. Then the people want to use the good one, better one.
Okay.
Then the effect will be the similar. When you show the bad one, when you show the good one.
I see. Indirectly, you're showing the good one.
Then the other one means bad one.
Make a market demand for this strengthening of it. Dr. Michelle wanted to add something?
I just wanted to add on a positive note that as part of this urban resilience project, one of the projects that's happening under that is a hazard vulnerability assessment for public buildings. So there are contractors here, and they're doing testing and making a list of the most vulnerable public buildings, and then the government can use that list to start retrofitting.
My question would be, people have a perception that strengthening or retrofitting or correcting the buildings is quite an expensive exercise. So is it true?
Yeah, in Japan I propose some incentive systems, especially for the residential houses. Because when the residential houses seismic capacity is quite low, then earthquake occurred, many structures are collapsed. Yes, we have in Japan, the recovery from the disaster is the victims should recover by themselves. This is the principle, but the reality is quite different. The government should pay a lot of money for demolishing the damaged structure, or to construct temporary shelters, or to construct the permanent house for victims who cannot survive, who cannot recover. So these money, if the structures are okay, then the government, they do not have to pay.
Yes.
Therefore, when the house owners retrofit their own house before the hazard attack, unfortunately, they can save the family members, but because of bad soil condition, the house structure itself tilted. In such case, the government can make a promise: we will give you a large amount of compensation rather than the people who did not do before. So this kind of the one is an incentive system.
During new buildings, banks can play any role in while disbursing loans for buildings?
Yes. In Nepal, before the earthquake 2015, I visited many times and explained and gave lectures to the financial people. You are the person who can manage the quality of the houses or structures. You should check the building that that are constructed using your money. Your client, if they do not pay much attention to the quality of the buildings, in sometime future, when the earthquake occurred, that building will be damaged. Then she, client, cannot pay you back. So you will lose your business. So then you should check. You can have a very important role to manage. But at that time, they said that if we do so, that means we will lose the business opportunity. But after the earthquake, they really recognized they should do.
Okay.
I think the situation in this city, Dhaka, the same.
Yeah.
So before the hazard attack, we should do. Please think about the time up to the hazard, and time just after the hazard attack. Which is longer? The time up to the hazard is much longer than that of just after. So we should use well this time to reduce the amount of businesses that we should do just after. That is the key point.
Yes, I think we should learn from experiences from other countries, like how financial institutions can play a big role in that. In fact, I have had conversation with people in the financial sector. They have a perception, they say that, but if we have to rigorously assess these, that will be a big burden on us as financial institutions. Rather, there should be a regulatory mechanism whereby it is guaranteed that the buildings they provide loan for will be according to the building code or something. So should there be a regulatory mechanism on that, or in the approval process, or how can that be improved? The electronic construction permitting system, can that play a role in that?
Well, there is already a rule that says buildings have to be designed and built in
Yes.
accordance with the building code.
Yeah.
But sure, yeah, regulations certainly can be strengthened that way. But building a building is a system, like we're talking about, and banks have a big role to play. Insurance companies can have a big role to play. The regulator can, and then of course the professionals and the developers. So all of these have responsibilities and the ability to be able to improve the situation. So in the United States, for example, where I'm from, banks don't just leave it to the regulators. I mean, the regulators do their part, but banks also make sure, because it's their money, right?
Yes.
Who's better equipped to protect the bank's money than the bank? So the banks think that it might be a big burden on them, as Dr. Maguro described, but as we say, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, right? It seems like a big burden now, but if there's an earthquake, it's going to, any money that they spend now is going to seem so small compared to the losses that they could sustain.
And Professor Meguro, if you want to say anything to our viewers, your last words to our viewers.
Okay, please think about the why. In January, we cannot prepare the proper disaster countermeasures. I think that behind this, there are two spirals. One, they don't know what really happened. Therefore, they have no idea what they should do. Therefore, they do nothing. This is the first. The second, they do not know what really happened. Therefore, they cannot draft the proper disaster countermeasures. Therefore, its efficiency is so limited. In both of the cases, at the first step, there is a lack of disaster imagination. So we should increase the disaster imagination of all levels of people. This is the key. Without improving disaster imagination, I can say it's impossible to improve the disaster management capacity.
Professor Meguro, Dr. Michel, thank you so much for coming to this studio, and I just enjoyed talking to you. It was wonderful, and especially your advices and comments that will be very much helpful for us in making Dhaka safe. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
দর্শক, আমরা কথা বললাম আজকে আরবান রেজিলিয়েন্স নিয়ে, যে ঢাকা শহরকে কিভাবে বাসযোগ্য দুর্যোগ থেকে সহনীয় অবস্থায় কিভাবে নেওয়া যায় সে প্রসঙ্গে এখানে প্রফেসর মেগুরো অনেকগুলো গুরুত্বপূর্ণ মন্তব্য করেছেন, যে কিভাবে আসলে মানুষকে নিজেদের জানতে হবে, আমাদের যারা প্রফেশনালস আছেন তাদেরকে জানতে হবে যে আমাদেরকেই ব্যবস্থা নিতে হবে আমাদের ঢাকাকে দুর্যোগে যাতে ঢাকা বিপদগ্রস্ত একটা শহর না হয়ে যায় সেজন্য। ডক্টর মিশেল যে বলছিলেন যে রাজুকের একটি প্রজেক্টের মাধ্যমে তারা কাজ করছেন এ ব্যাপারে, সেখানে একটি আরবান রেজিলিয়েন্স ইউনিট নামে একটি ইউনিট হবে যারা রাজুককে কারিগরি ব্যাপারে সহায়তা করবে। তো আমাদের সরকার আসলে অনেকগুলো পদক্ষেপ নিচ্ছে বিভিন্ন মিনিস্ট্রির থ্রুতে। সেই পদক্ষেপগুলোর মাধ্যমে আমাদের সামনে আমরা দেখতে পাবো ঢাকা অনেকখানি আমাদের জন্য বাসযোগ্য হয়ে উঠছে। এই মন্তব্য করে আমি শেষ করছি। ধন্যবাদ।